All right, here's part two. Well, still continuation of part one on mechanical licensing. Where we left off was there are three types of mechanical licenses. One is you can get one if you need one. You need to record a song. You can get one by going through the procedures set out in the copyright law for a compulsory mechanical license. Number two, you could go directly to the publisher or through their representative, and which would probably be the Harry Fox agency, and try to negotiate some better terms. Or number three, a common way a mechanical license is acquired is that a record company gets mechanical licenses for every song the artist is going to record under a record deal within the recording agreement in a paragraph that is sometimes referred to as a controlled compositions clause. Some things to watch out for in that controlled compositions clause is number one, look at the definition of what a controlled composition is. As the one I gave you in the outline, you should have the outline, is that it's any composition written or recorded, written and recorded under the agreement by the artist or producer who works on something. So you're being asked, as we learned never to do, to give up rights you don't have. That is the way that that is written there in the outline. And in most recording agreements, you are guaranteeing the record company that the producer, if they wrote a song, they will issue the license at the 3/4 rate. So you don't want to do that. Number two, you're going to be probably be forced to agree to the 3/4 rate, which you don't want to do. And number two, you're going to have to agree that it's the rate in effect at some time in the past and not moving forward into the future. You might have to agree to a minimum amount. So even if you write a longer song than 5 minutes, you're going to get the under 5-minute rate. And all those things you're going to want to negotiate. And we'll show you how you mark up that provision when we get to a more interactive part of the show here. You're also going to be asked to put a cap on how much the record company is responsible for paying in mechanical royalties in total for an album, whether you wrote the songs or not. And that cap is usually not 10 songs. I don't want you to think about it as a 10-song cap. It's a cap in a specific dollar and cents amount that is equal to usually 10 times the rate you agreed to. So if you agreed to the 75% rate, which is 6.825 cents, you're guaranteeing the record company will never have to pay more than 68.25 cents every time they sell a full-length CD. I'll explain that with some of the examples I have in the outline in just a second. I want to tell you some other features that might appear in a controlled compositions clause. Quite often you are asked to agree to semi-annual accounting, because that's the way a record deal works, is that the record company only reports artist royalties every 6 months. They will say we're only going to pay you mechanical royalties every 6 months. And you can see how that got progressively worse from the compulsory license, which was payable monthly, to the negotiated license, which is generally payable quarterly, to the artist agreement, where it's paid semi-annually. Also, you may be forced to agree to give them some additional rights that you don't want to do. Free sync license, no matter whether they're making money from that sync license or not. Agreement to use the lyrics, an agreement to a reduction in your mechanical rate equal to your reduction in your record royalty. So record royalties, not to get too much into this, record royalties are sometimes reduced based upon the type of sale it is. If it's a foreign sale, you might only get 3/4 of your normal royalty or half of your normal royalty. If it's sold at a budget price, your record, lower than a normal retail price, you get paid a reduced artist royalty. Some controlled compositions clauses say whenever your record royalty of whatever it is, 20%, 15%, whatever your record royalty is, if that gets reduced under your record deal because of the type of sale it is, then your mechanical royalty will be reduced as well. So just some messy, messy stuff. That hardly matters anymore because we don't sell digital and physical copies that much, but still we're an important part of this business and really serve to really rip the artist off for years and years and years. And you should just look at it as an example of one way in which somebody took advantage of another party and which you should avoid in the future, in this case, and then in other applications of how that might operate. All right, to get back to the cap, just so you understand this. The artist has guaranteed the record company that they won't have to pay any more than a certain amount. If, for some reason, the total mechanical royalties were to exceed that 68.25 cents, we call those excess mechanicals. Excess mechanicals, that is, mechanicals that the record label would be liable for above and beyond the cap that you have set. So, how is this handled? If there are going to be excess mechanicals, that is, for some reason, the songs, if you add up how much the record label would have to pay in mechanical royalties, it adds up to more than 68.25 cents. How is the label going to deal with that? The first way they're going to deal with it is they're going to reduce the royalties payable to the artist / songwriter to get it within that cap amount. If they can't get it within that cap amount doing that, they're going to try to get it from the artist any way they can, any amount over 68.25 cents. So if you look at this example here, whoa, in your outline, let's read it together so you get a feel for how this operates. What if an artist has 9 songs? They've written 9 controlled compositions. They've written 9 songs and they're putting it on the record. How much would the record label be liable for in mechanical royalties? Well, it would be 9 times the rate agreed to, which was typically the 3/4 rate. So 9 times 6.825 cents, you can see it written out there in a decimal form. The record label would be liable for 61.425 cents. That is, every time they sold a full-length CD with those 9 songs on it, they would owe mechanical royalties to the artist or publisher of those songs of 61.425 cents. Since that is below the amount the artist guaranteed that the label was going to have to pay, the label will pay that amount. And so we're fine. We're fine. What if there were 10 songs on there? That would be 10 times the 3/4 rate, 10 times 6.825 cents, leading to a total liability on the part of the record company of 68.25 cents. That is also within the cap. It's in fact right at the cap, so the label will pay that amount. Okay? Got that? Yeah. This is easy. What if the artist put 11 songs on there? 11 songs. 11 times 6.825 cents is 75 cents and some change. That is over the cap. The cap, the artist guaranteed them was 68 cents. This is about 75 cents. So there's 7 cents in excess mechanicals. So the record label is only going to pay the artist, because the first option they have is to reduce the amount payable to the artist. So they will only pay the artist 68.25 cents for 11 songs, because that's what the artist agreed is the maximum the record label would have to pay. Same would be true no matter how many songs you put on there. You put 12 songs on there times 6.825 cents, don't matter. The record label is only going to pay the artist 68.25 cents. Put 13 on there, 14, 15, doesn't matter. That's all they're going to pay. So that's if there's 10 control. That's if those are all controlled compositions. That if there are excess mechanicals that would normally be payable, the label is just going to reduce the amount they're paying to the artist in mechanical royalties as the writer of that song to the cap amount. You're going to have to do some of these in a little worksheet, so pay attention. All right. What if the artist records a combination of controlled compositions that they've written themselves and then some outside songs, like people do. Like Adele will record 8 of her own songs and then 2 songs she's going to cover the old Make You Love Me song by Bob Dylan. She's going to record, what'd she do that? The Cure song. I forgot which one. Anyway, so that happens quite frequently. So let's look at an example of what might happen there. What if Adele records an album and she's got 7 controlled compositions, 7 that she wrote herself, and 3 that somebody else wrote, a Sony writer, all by themselves. And so what's going to happen in that transaction? Well, the record label has to pay Sony whatever Sony wanted to charge, which they want to charge the full rate. They don't care about this controlled compositions clause. So 9.1 cents per those 3 songs is 27.3 cents. That's what the record label is paying for those 3 songs. Now the artist should get 7 times, because they've got 7 of their own songs on there, at 6.825 cents, leading to a mechanical royalty for those 7 songs of 47.775 cents. But that if you pay the entire amount to the artist, 47 cents plus the 27 cents that is payable to Sony, that would exceed the cap. It would be 75 cents. So what the label's going to do in that circumstance is, once again, look to how much they're paying the artist and reduce it to stay within the cap. So if you had 68.25 cents as the cap and 27.3 cents is going to Sony, that only leaves 40.95 cents left to pay the artist. That's what the artist will be paid instead of the 0.47775 cents. Okay? So you take the cap amount, see how much has to be paid out to third parties, how much is left for the artist. If there's enough there to pay his mechanical royalties, he gets the whole thing. If his mechanical royalties would exceed that amount, he just gets that amount. Okay? And that could be any kind of variation on that. It could be 4 outside songs and 5 controlled compositions, and I will give you some of those in a worksheet for you to see if you can figure this through. The last rather drastic situation is where somebody records all outside material, somebody like Celine Dion, for instance. So it could be Celine Dion's there, as I said earlier, and she picks 10 songs, one from Sony, one from where, I think in this example, they're all from Sony. Okay, so we go and we negotiate. We say, can we have the 75% rate? And they say no. And so they charge the full rate for every one of those songs that Celine Dion is going to record. Speaking of which, did you watch her last night on that special? It's really good, really good. So that means that whenever the record company sells a CD, here we go, 10 songs on it, they are going to spend 91 cents in mechanical royalties. They have to pay for every song on there at 9.1 cents each, 10 songs on there. So every time they sell a CD, they have to pay a publisher, in this case Sony, 91 cents. But Celine Dion, in her controlled compositions clause, oh my, said there's a cap of 68.25 cents. And now the record label has paid out 91 cents. So what is going to occur? I don't know where my paper is. That means there are 22.75 cents in excess mechanicals. Remember what excess mechanicals are? Any amounts over the cap that, I keep getting messages up here, I'm sorry. Any amounts over the cap that the record label may have to pay. Celine agreed, guaranteed that the label would only have to pay 68.75 cents in mechanical royalties. They wound up spending 91 cents each time they sold a record for those 10 songs. That means there's 22.75 cents over the cap. Over the cap. The artist is responsible for those amounts, and the label will try to have ways in the agreement in which they can get that money back. In fact, it might say, every time we sell a record and there's 22 cents in excess mechanicals, you owe us 22 cents. You owe us 22 cents. So we can get it back by reducing your record royalty, your artist royalty maybe, you know, that 20% for every time there's a sale. We can get it back, take it out of your advances. We can come and get it out of your sock drawer if that's where you keep your money. You have to reimburse them on demand. So it's a very harmful provision if you happen to be somebody who records outside material. Okay. So I told you this one is tough. I know it is. I know my experience. Just think of what's happening here. The artist is guaranteeing the record label, you're never going to have to pay more than this. And so anytime the record label potentially is liable for more than that, they're going to try to get it down to within that cap, either by reducing mechanicals that might be payable to the artist, or just getting it out of their wallet. Okay, any of those excess mechanicals. All right, you'll see if you go through, think about it, review this, listen to me again, as painful as that sounds, and do that. All right. Next is streaming, which I don't know, maybe they're calling that a mechanical license now. I don't think anybody's agreed on the terminology here. But the way streaming works is that a record label must have first acquired a mechanical license to record it, and then any royalties for streaming are paid pursuant to a license that the streamer, as the licensee, acquires. So in our licensing paradigm for streaming, The licensor, the one who initially has those rights, is the publisher. Nobody can stream any compositions I own without getting my permission. Oh, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Tidal. You want to stream my songs? You need a license. There's a compulsory licensing provision for this type of license under Section 115 of the Copyright Act. And so the licensee, Spotify, Apple Music, etc., they will acquire the rights to stream music on demand. That's interactive streaming. They acquire the rights to do that as long as they pay a fee of 10.5% of their revenue into a pile. So, a couple of things here. First of all, you have the licensor, publisher. The licensee is the streaming service. The rights acquired are the rights to stream. Well, that was a weird technical glitch. And then the rate paid by the streamer is 10.5% of the revenue. Now, a couple of things I need you to know about this 10.5% of revenue. I have way oversimplified this. Way. That is, there are some really wacky formulas based upon number of users, based upon free users, based upon whether you have a performance license, all sorts of weird crap. That could be alternative ways of calculating this. But the basic and clearest way, and most common way it's calculated, is that Spotify brings in all its money from all its subscribers, you guys, $10 a month, $5 a month, whatever it is. Boom, we got a pile of money. 10.5% of that money that they've earned goes into a pot, and then they divide it amongst the publishers based upon how many times their songs have been streamed. Okay, it's a big pile of money divided according to among all these thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of songs, based upon their percentage of times that they've been played compared to the total. Now, the way this works out, and this might be an antiquated figure, but it's just a rough figure to give you an idea of where historically over the last few years we've been, that equates to probably about 1/10 of a penny per stream. That's rough. Could be a little higher, could be a little lower. I don't know where we are. It differs based upon so many factors, but somewhere around 1/10 of a penny for each stream. That's pretty low. If you do get a lot of streams, it adds up. Trust me. If you're Drake and you're doing the Tootsie slide, you're making lots of tenths of pennies, and it adds up to a nice mansion if you watch that video. So it'll add up. But there was a movement to get that raised, and a board recommended a raise from that 10.5% up to gradually 15.1%, and that is currently being challenged by Spotify and almost every other service other than Apple in court. So we'll have to see how that pans out. So it's going to be very soon that we'll discover whether that rate hike is approved by the court or that they reduce it. I'm going to think that it's going to go up. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind it's going to go up. So we'll find out in the next couple of months. So did we do the 5? Licensor, licensee, rights acquired, fee paid. What was that 5th thing? I can't remember. Oh yeah. It's some third party that might be involved in this transaction, and that is the Mechanical Licensing Collective that was established at the same time as the statutory rate and all the procedures for how this compulsory licensing would work. And so it's a collective of industry people sanctioned by the government, and it is going to be the one to administer all of this. That is to make sure all the licenses are in place and to make sure that these licenses are all paid honestly and accurately. That Mechanical Licensing Collective is headed up by Chris Arendt, who used to head up Warner here in town, their accounting services. He is in love with our students. He says he bleeds true blue, and he just hired one of your compadres, Brianna Riesling, and he wants to hire as many human beings from MTSU as is humanly possible. So get to know this stuff. This is a job. This is a job to understand how mechanical licensing works and what Spotify has to do and how they have to pay stuff and how they have to register. The songs have to be registered, and we have to be able to track down who all these publishers and songwriters are. That is a giant job that's being conducted right now in Nashville for the entire country, and they want you to be a part of it. So see if you can do that. All right, I think I'm going to stop there. My voice is going. I am going to do a quick lecture on pitching a song, and it's mostly common sense stuff, but I just want to give you a feel for what the life of a song plugger is and some of the considerations that go into actually getting somebody to want a license, to be shopping a song for and trying to get people to record it. And so I'll do another short lecture on that, probably 15 or 20 minutes. All right? So try to digest all that math stuff and get ready for a worksheet that's going to ask you a bunch of stuff about how some of these numbers operate. Okay? Happy Sunday.